The moment the letter came to light, everything shifted. This wasn't a public statement, a press release, or a diplomatic explanation. It was a private message, never intended to be seen, never meant to be heard, and never supposed to exist outside a tightly locked circle of power. Yet somehow, breaking every rule of silence that governs the world's most controlled elite networks, the words, allegedly written by one of Dubai's most influential figures to Meghan Markle, suddenly spread quietly but widely across the globe. The impact was immediate, explosive, and deeply unsettling. This wasn't just about a denied entry or a brief airport encounter. It was about an interaction that reshaped perceptions for years to come. This was about intention, judgment, and a decision made long before Meghan Markle's passport ever touched the scanner, long before the airplane wheels even touched the Dubai runway. According to accounts emerging from administrative corridors, the denial itself was procedural, quiet, and absolute. It unfolded behind glass at Dubai International Airport Terminal 3 on February 16, 2026. Witnesses described a pause at immigration, an unusual delay, a flicker of system recognition, followed by a silent directive redirecting Meghan Markle away from the public queue into a private processing area. No explanation was given, and no negotiation was allowed. Within less than 40 minutes, the determination had been finalized. Entry denied outright, not postponed, not deferred, but refused completely without statement, spectacle, or confrontation. Within hours, she was gone. Her presence erased not through force, but through procedure. Observers were left questioning what had occurred behind closed doors long before her arrival. The cameras captured the sterile stillness of the immigration corridor, a controlled environment where nothing seemed emotional and everything appeared predetermined, a place where decisions are executed, not debated. It is here that insiders later whispered the shadow of the letter first began. According to sources with proximity to the chain of authority, the communication had been issued days before her flight even departed, not as a reaction, but as a preventative measure. The message was written not in anger, but in calculation, outlining concerns not about identity, but about volatility, not about status, but predictability. Those familiar with Dubai's internal protocols understood immediately what that meant. In a system designed around stability and narrative control, unpredictability is not merely inconvenient, it is disqualifying, and this is where the story stops being procedural and becomes personal. The alleged contents of the letter were not theatrical or dramatic in tone, but devastating in implication. They described the need to preserve institutional neutrality, avoid media entanglement, and protect strategic relationships from reputational turbulence. According to one insider speaking under strict anonymity, the message contained a line so cold and deliberate that those who saw it never forgot it, a line emphasizing that Dubai does not respond to narratives. It responds to risk assessments. In that single sentence, observers realized this was never about Meghan Markle the person, but Meghan Markle the variable, the unpredictability she brings, the gravitational pull of controversy transforming every appearance into a headline, every silence into speculation, every movement into interpretation. Security footage shows a brief silhouette exiting the private processing corridor, a figure composed yet visibly tense, moving without escort but without a clear destination. The body language was controlled but unmistakably changed. Her posture showed someone who immediately understood that something irreversible had happened. Insiders later claimed this was the moment she realized the decision was not spontaneous. It had been pre-written, pre-approved, and possibly communicated. Long before her arrival, long before her team finalized the itinerary, long before the plane even began its descent. What makes this alleged letter so explosive is not just that it exists, but its timing. According to those tracking the timeline, the letter's creation reportedly coincided with a surge of renewed scrutiny into Meghan Markle's past. This scrutiny had been quietly building through investigative podcasts, resurfacing personal connections and institutional reviews that questioned disclosure accuracy and narrative consistency. It created an environment where global partners, media executives, and government officials were no longer evaluating her merely as a personality, but as a risk profile. This was a subtle but profound shift, almost invisible to the public, yet deeply consequential behind closed doors. Dubai, unlike many Western institutions that allow controversy to play out publicly, operates on a doctrine of silent prevention, removing variables before they become disruptions and neutralizing uncertainty before it becomes spectacle. Those familiar with the system understood that when Dubai closes a door, it rarely announces the closure. It simply ensures the door never opens again. Passport scanners blinked quietly in repetition, each scan a decision point, each beep a confirmation of access or denial. Insiders later explained that Meghan Markle's passport didn't trigger an alarm, but a recognition, a pre-existing administrative determination that had already been logged, authorized, and finalized. The outcome was never in question. Only the execution mattered. The letter itself did not emerge immediately. It remained hidden, buried beneath layers of discretion and protocol, until whispers began circulating among diplomatic intermediaries and commercial partners. These whispers described not confrontation, but communication, not rejection, but clarification. A message emphasizing distance, not hostility, but separation, the kind of separation that does not provoke retaliation, but ensures detachment. When fragments of its alleged language began appearing in private briefings and insider discussions, the reaction was immediate. This was not merely an immigration decision. It was a signal, a message that reverberated far beyond the airport, terminal, reaching boardrooms, media offices, and royal circles that immediately understood its implications without needing explanation. Because in environments governed by power, silence is not absence. Silence is instruction. And as the alleged letter's existence continued to circulate, one question began to overshadow all others. Not whether Meghan Markle had been denied entry, that part was already procedural fact, but what the decision truly signaled to the world. But why was this communication even written? Why was a private message necessary to formalize something that could have remained an invisible administrative action? Insiders suggested the answer was chillingly simple. This was never about a single moment. It was about the future. It was about setting a boundary so clear and deliberate that it would never need to be repeated. Those familiar with the system knew exactly what that meant. In environments like Dubai, the most powerful statements are rarely made publicly. They are written privately, delivered quietly, and enforced completely. What happened next did not unfold in public. It happened in whispers, in sudden silences, in meetings that were never announced, and calls that were never acknowledged. The alleged letter accomplished something far more devastating than any public rejection ever could. It altered perception at the highest levels of influence. Those who had once seen Meghan Markle as an untouchable global figure suddenly began to see something very different, a liability that could no longer be managed by charm, visibility, or narrative control. Insiders claim that within 48 hours of the letter's rumored circulation, a quiet but unmistakable recalibration began across multiple sectors. Commercial partners who had previously pursued her with urgency suddenly paused negotiations. Media executives who had once fought for association requested additional due diligence. Diplomatic intermediaries who had previously facilitated access began maintaining distance, not publicly, not dramatically, but definitively. The alleged message carried something more powerful than mere rejection. It carried finality. It offered no follow-up, no pathway for reversal, only clarity and decisive separation. The scene opens on a dimly lit executive conference room where nothing is spoken aloud, yet everything is understood. A place where reputations are evaluated not by emotion, but by risk exposure. Insiders described how Meghan Markle's name, once associated with opportunity, suddenly became associated with uncertainty. Not because of anything she did at that moment, but because of what the letter implied about how she was now perceived by one of the world's most strategically controlled power centers. Those present in these private discussions understood immediately that this was not an isolated incident. It was a signal, one that would influence decisions far beyond Dubai itself. In global power networks, letters like this do not exist in isolation. They ripple outward, interpreted and internalized by institutions that operate under the same principle: predictability above all else. According to individuals familiar with high-level decision protocols, once a figure is categorized as unpredictable, consequences unfold quietly but relentlessly. Invitations stop arriving, opportunities cease accelerating, partnerships stall, not through confrontation, but through absence, omission, and the slow, deliberate withdrawal of access. This leaves no visible wound but ensures irreversible separation. Insiders began noticing the effects in the days that followed. Scheduled meetings postponed indefinitely. Exploratory projects moved into indefinite review. Communication channels that had once been immediate became delayed, vague, or entirely unresponsive. A silent shot of a luxury aircraft departing into an empty sky symbolizes movement without destination, access without arrival. Observers later described how this moment captured a psychological shift. Meghan Markle's influence had always depended on forward momentum, constant expansion, and perpetual narrative advancement. The alleged letter represented the exact opposite: containment, restriction, and strategic stillness. The kind of stillness this created did not erase visibility, but it made it powerless, visible yet disconnected, present yet excluded. What made the situation even more unsettling, insiders said, was the response from Meghan Markle's team, which was unusually restrained. Rather than issuing immediate denials or launching public counterattacks, there was silence. Many interpreted this silence not as weakness but as calculated restraint, understanding that acknowledging the letter would only amplify its significance. Those familiar with crisis management recognized the dilemma immediately. Acknowledging the letter would validate its authority, while ignoring it risked letting its implications solidify without challenge. This created a strategic paralysis, leaving observers searching for any sign of reaction, resistance, or dismissal. But none appeared. A camera might focus on a mobile screen filled with unanswered calls, unread messages, and suspended communications, a visual representation of how power operates subtly. Not through confrontation, but through withdrawal. Not by force, but by quietly redefining access, transforming influence into isolation without public announcement. The truth is, letters like this are never designed to provoke a response. They are meant to set boundaries so clear that enforcement is unnecessary. Insiders who claim to have seen fragments of the letter described its tone as procedural, detached, and final. It emphasized institutional priorities rather than personal judgment, framing the decision not as rejection, but as necessity. In doing so, it achieved something far more effective than confrontation ever could. It eliminated negotiation, replaced uncertainty with certainty, speculation with structure, and visibility with exclusion. A slow pan across the Dubai skyline at night, illuminated yet distant, accessible yet unreachable, symbolizes this paradox. Prominence does not guarantee acceptance, visibility does not guarantee access. Insiders later explained that this moment captured the essence of the alleged letter, not an emotional reaction, but a systemic decision. One rooted in calculation, not conflict, in preservation, not anger. As whispers of the letter spread quietly, through elite circles, its impact extended far beyond Meghan Markle herself. It became a case study in how perception can shift rapidly, how access can contract quietly, and how institutions can redefine relationships with individuals they once embraced. Observers noted that the most important part of the situation was not the airport denial or the rumors, but the letter itself. It transformed a moment into a message, an event into a signal, a denial into a declaration, one that did not need repetition to be understood. Those who grasped its meaning recognized something even more unsettling. In worlds governed by silent authority, the most powerful words are not spoken publicly. They are written privately, delivered quietly, and enforced without resistance, leaving no spectacle, no confrontation, no explanation, only the undeniable reality that the decision has already been made. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can reverse it.